Hey, welcome to episode 155 of Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. One thing I really enjoy about having my show is I can talk with my guests, find guests who want to talk about things that I find of importance and I find really neat. And today I'm talking to a guest who's passionate about being a life coach and who is also an artist and who is also a teacher. Just her experience and what she offers the world combines so many things I'm fascinated by. So I'm very excited to talk with her. I'll, I'll tell you more about her in a minute, but first, this.
Today's guest, Lisa Dresch.
Hey, welcome back. Lisa Dresch is one of the many things she does. She is a life coach, and it's got me thinking about life coaching, and so I wrote this as an intro. To be a great coach, one has to know how to listen, ask good questions, and possess the ability to take challenging notions and put them into empowering perspectives. A great coach also needs to help a client consider their vast array of complexity and find a starting point and go amongst all the moving parts. As if that was not enough, a great coach also needs to help their clients see what's working and what's not, and to share the perspective in an accessible and actionable way. Is that not a lot? I can tell Lisa Dresch is a great coach and proud to share her story with you. Please welcome to Awkwardly Awesome Podcast, Lisa Dresch. Yay! And the crowd goes wild.
Thanks, Jason. Nice to be here.
Thanks for being here. But we're pre-recording this, so there's no crowd. But if there was a crowd, they would go wild at this moment.
I'm sure they would. Thank you.
So I often like to start my guests off early in life, because so often as humans we sometimes just get thinking about the last few months and whatever challenges or opportunities, but we often don't reflect on how far we've come. So Lisa, if I had known you when you were 7 and I asked you, hey Lisa, what do you want to be when you grow up? What might have you have told me?
Well, that's a great question. I think back then I probably thought I was going to work with animals because I loved animals, and I also loved art. So maybe something with art. And then I ended up working in art, being an art teacher, and I own animals. So my dreams came true.
So what animal? I don't own any animals. What kind of animals do you own?
We have 3 cats and one tiny dog, an Italian Greyhound.
And this is like a miniature
Yeah.
greyhound.
Yeah, they're called miniature greyhounds or Italian greyhounds. She's about maybe, I don't know, 11 pounds, 10 pounds, maybe. Very tiny. Not the kind you race, but she can run fast for short periods of time. But she's 15, so doesn't run as much anymore.
What do you love about having animals in your life?
I would say between my husband and I, I think we have a dog, but we're cat people. We're just there's cat people and dog people, but we love dogs too. Just the companionship, the humor. They do a lot of funny things, and especially our cats. They they have times where they get along, times when they don't, and yeah, it's just they're little personalities. Each one's different. Each cat I've ever met is completely different, and I love that about animals. Yeah. We have a 3
Wonderful.
cat limit though, so we're maxed out. We're maxed out. We can't look at any more cat pictures. Don't show me your kittens. Don't ask me if I want your cat because I do and I can't. Yeah.
Spoken like cat people. It sounds like part of you wants to have 10 or 20 cats roaming around your house.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe.
So how did childhood steer you in the direction of becoming an art teacher?
Well, that kind of goes along with the name of my life coach business is Purpose to Peace. And I believe when you're walking in your purpose, your ordained purpose, your God given purpose, then it can be a pathway to peace. There's be obstacles, of course, but to find that purpose, I believe, is really important and to be supported in it. So, growing up, art was always something that we had around our house. My mom was creative and artistic, and definitely that kind of personality. And she always had crafts and art, flower arranging, stained glass. We did decoupage back in the day, and ceramics, and just always had art. And she just gave us the freedom to be creative and not mind a messy house. To have creative kids was precedent over having that perfect pristine house. So I'm pretty grateful for that. My mom's been gone 20 years now, but I am forever grateful for that opportunity to be expressive and creative.
Mm. Are your siblings also creative?
Yeah, I see that in them. They are, and I think that people they tell me they find out I'm an art teacher and they say, "Oh, I can't even draw a straight line." And I'm like, "I use a ruler for that. That's really not that creative. It's fine." Or, you know, everyone has some creativity and they have some creative aspect to their lives. They might not they're call art, or they're not like painting pictures, but they're doing things like my brothers are really good at construction and building and fixing and
Mm.
thinking creatively in that way. And they also they can paint, they can draw too. They're just not actively doing it. But them being an artist is still part of them. And then my sister is a graphic designer, and she's an amazingly talented and creative person, and hardworking, and kind of prolific and productive in her element too. But yeah, there's just creative aspects to life in general. People that say I can't do art might have like a beautifully decorated home. Well, that's art, that's design, that's color. Or they dress, put outfits together and things, and that's art, that's creativity. Yeah.
what would you say to someone who might be listening and going, "Oh, Lisa, I remember being creative as a kid, but I had to become an adult and get this job that pay well, and I just don't have time to be creative anymore."
Well, I do understand that because I teach art. I've taught art for over 30 years. And I kind of find like when I'm teaching, I use my creativity and my art my art time or art energy for helping other people. So when I come home, like I always haven't done things that are creative because you you know, I don't know if you don't use it up, but you don't have that need because you're getting some creativity in another place. So if you don't have any outlets for expression, I do think it's important, and you kind of feel it. You feel kind of lifeless and kind of, I don't know, not as um, feel that spark maybe in life. So just to make time for it, even um, planning for that or trying to learn a new hobby or pick up a guitar and learn one chord then do another chord or there's so many resources today with the internet that you know I didn't have growing up, most people didn't, where you can learn a new skill, you can learn to play ukulele, you can learn to paint. We had Bob Ross back in the day at Button PBS, but no one can paint that fast. I can't paint in 25 minutes like he did. So, but now you can pause it, you can look at it. So there's a lot of resources out there. Um, and I always tell my kids at school too. I know that the screens and the phones and the devices have become a part of our life, but I always say don't be viewers, do it. Be doers. Don't
Don't
just
be viewers, do it. Oh,
yeah.
that's
Don't be viewers,
beautiful.
be doers, because you sit and you watch other people do it. Like you do it. You do something, you know. You're what you're watching is them after the 100th or 500th time, but they're not videotaping their first time or their second time, they've practiced it. They've got better at it, and you can do it. Pick something, try lots of things, see what you like, see what kind of does spark you, and and do it. Just try it. Just
So I have a confession back when I was in art class. I would look at the example and then look at what I was creating and go, oh, I just don't have it. So what do you do when a kid gets into that place of comparison and thinking they're not perfect enough to be an artist?
well, I love your phrase, Jason, and perfectly perfect, because um, that's where we are. There's no perfect. I always like say we are all humans in here, and I like art that looks like it's made by humans. It's like there's no, people get really, especially when you're a young artist, you get very self-conscious about how it looks and doesn't look like how you want it to look. And I say, here's a secret: none of my art ever looks like how I want it to look. In my mind, I have this vision, this dream of what I was trying to make my goal, and I yet don't have the skills to get there, or maybe I humanly can't, but it's a good starting point. But when I do make something, I can see that it has growth and it has good qualities, and I try to pull those out of my students too. When I see like, look, you did that line, or let's look back at 3 weeks ago, this drawing you did the beginning of class. Now look at this drawing. Do you see any change or improvement? Oh yeah, I do a little. And then say, well, imagine if you kept drawing 3 weeks and then 3 weeks and then more, you would see growth. Anything you do repeatedly, you're going to get better at. So I think a lot of it is just that time, putting the time into it. And I also think everyone has their own style. So I try to encourage like different people's style, how I admire other artists, other styles, and they admire mine. And we're critical of our own, admire others, but think that you're an other to somebody else. So, um, appreciate what you've got.
I like that you have a lot. I encourage the people watching to pay attention because Lisa just ha- has these zingers, which are so amazing. You are one of them. Just know you are other to someone else. Oh my gosh, it's just so simple and it's so true.
Well, thanks, Jason.
S- So, Lisa, in all your years as an artist, have you ever been able to paint something exactly like appeared in your head?
At times, yes. Sometimes even better than I thought it was going to turn out. Sometimes not. Sometimes it turns out different, but I would say there's different ways to get there. It's like I'm going to Minneapolis. Well, are you going to take, the small town highways, or are you going to take Albert Lee? There's different ways to get to the same place. So sometimes things turn out. I arrive someplace in a different way than I expected, and I'm just pleased to be there. You
We
learn a lot
we
on the
we
way.
what?
You
Sorry.
learn a lot on the way. You take some ways you take they're a little bit longer or detours, and you might think that's a negative, but like, hey, you got to see some places you never saw before. You got to meet some people you never saw before. If you take the same way every time, then you won't get that. So there's
Hmm.
positives.
Hmm. And definitely, there's so much more country than just going one way all the time.
Hmm.
So sometimes, Lisa, we tend to, especially like when you get to my age, you tend to start idealizing what it's like being a young kid. All first, like how young do kids become conscious of how the art looks and think and start thinking, oh, this might not be good enough.
You mean in art or just any aspect of their lives?
J- j- um, in art, since you're an art teacher.
Okay. Well, that's why I think that having people, I think we're made for relationships, and that's what teachers do. When we had that year, that virtual learning year, it was bad. It wasn't good. It wasn't. I didn't enjoy it as a teacher, and the kids didn't really like it as kids because they didn't have that human, that person telling them or encouraging them, or say, hey, you're checking in, like, hey, how's it going? You're not drawing that much today, or like, hey, let's look at this line together. What do you think? So I think just that human element is so important to have a real life human help you and guide you. And then I also think that the power of validation is so important. Somewhere along the line, somebody noticed my art skills. My parents, my student, or my teachers, yeah, other students too. And like that feels good when you get recognized for something that you have a skill for, and that encouragement is just kind of the fuel to keep you going. Whereas another example is when I was in high school, I tried out for what we called it was like a swing choir. It was like a glee club type of thing, variety show. Different schools have different names, but I tried out, and I love music since I was little. As much as I loved art, I love music,
Wow.
and I played piano, I played percussion, and I love singing, and I tried out and I sang a Journey song. It probably was a bad choice, but I didn't make it. And so I didn't get any feedback other than you're not in. You weren't good
Hmm.
enough. So I kind of took that as that, well, you can't sing. You're not a singer. And I never tried or went down that way again. I just tried different paths. I got into um, playing my instrument more and doing other things. But now later on in adult life, it's like, I want to revisit that, and I want to try some things and maybe pursue that. So I think for kids, if they hear no or if they don't hear encouragement, they're not going to grow. It's no, it's not like you're not watering that plant; it's going to die. Whereas just a little encouragement in life, a little validation in life is like it's just that little bit of water that you need, and you start to have a little growth, and that's why it's important. That's why teaching's important, and life coach is just a different kind of teaching.
How young can a student become self-critical? Like a student self-critical in like kindergarten or uh,
I think so. Yes, they can be. Um, you know, um, we didn't talk about it, but I co-authored a book about Oscar Howe, and that was really a powerful story for me because he was an artist, and we all know him, um, and he is a prolific, amazing, world-renowned artist. And so grateful that he
would
gave
you
us
please
paintings, but
describe his work for people listening in other parts of the country who might not know
sure.
him?
Sure. Well, first of all, I would say get on that device and look up his art and his images because they're really uh, you can't really compare his work to anybody. He was just that much of a genius and innovative, and even just his method, how he painted, was just very unique. It's very spiritual and meditative how he did his art. But he does this colorful work that has movement in it somehow, even though it is 2D. It's shapes and colors on paper or on canvas. And it is, swirls and kind of a cubist kind of movements. And it just, you can feel it almost, I can almost hear it when
Hmm.
I can almost hear music when I see his art. But
Wow.
beautiful gift. He had a gift, but the story goes that when he was little, he loved art when he got a pencil as a gift, a pencil, just a simple pencil, which is just all you need in art to be an artist. And his father took it away because he was a discourager and he wasn't an encourager. And Oscar went outside and he found the dirt and he just, kind of smoothed away the prairie dirt and started drawing with sticks. And his dad took the sticks away too and said art was nonsense. But he, for many reasons, could have just given up. But there's something inside him that just like he had to get the art out. He just had to. He was just an artist. So he did get encouraged later on in life, I think, because he went to school and he also had a grandma that encouraged him. But I know that being discouraged, kids age 5 for sure they can be discouraged, even younger, from doing
Wow.
things. Even like that's why it's so important for kids to play. Play is their work, and play is messy, but it's important because they're trying things, they're expressing things. They don't even have language sometimes where play and art, making banging on things, pots and pans, like my grandson does. That's language. That's here I am. This is who I am. It's part of who I am. So yeah, should encourage kids in all of that. Yeah, encourage people of all ages in that.
What would you say to someone who's listening who's feeling kind of discouraged right now by any number of things?
Um,
It's a
I,
broad question. I'm sorry.
it, it is, but I think it's the human condition too, to have times of encouragement, or discouragement, and it's not a permanent state. It doesn't have to be a permanent state. You can't live, you know, those mountain highs all the time. Otherwise, what would you have to be happy about unless you'd seen the lower parts? You have to know that the morning's coming. It's not going to be night forever. And I think sometimes people in isolation, it's very hard because we saw the mental health crashing throughout pandemic where people stayed at home. And I see the effects of kids yet today. They didn't
Mm.
have interaction from people. And I think that if you are in a period of feeling discouraged or stuck or overwhelmed, call somebody, um, write some things down, be your own person, be your own person that you communicate with, and get things out. I know for me, it's a skill that I've just recently learned, to speak up and to, you know, look at my own needs and make my voice heard, even if it's just to myself, and to get validation that way, I think is so important. So if you're feeling discouraged, you know, we need each other, and I think, call somebody.
So you said make your voice heard, even if it's just to yourself.
Mhm.
How do we make our voice heard to ourselves?
Well, I would say when you feel like, I personally have felt this way and felt really stuck or overwhelmed, or you just get kind of, full of sometimes a lot of negative things. And if the best thing, I think, is to have someone to talk to get it out, because once it's out in the open, then it's a lot less scary, it's a lot less dark. It's literally in the open, it's literally in the light. And light's the best disinfectant. In the dark
It's
is
the best
it
disinfectant.
is. It is. You say these things out, even the ugliest thing you have to say, just say it, because it gets out. It just doesn't have that power that it leads you to believe it has. And yeah, if you can't have a person to talk to, maybe that's something that's coming yet. Maybe you have, fears, or I'm a shy person. I've always been shy and quiet, but uh, shy people still have a voice. They have, you know, it's just not as loud as other people, but it's there, and that's why it comes out. That's why, our artists are people that make things, beautiful things in this world, literature, art, music. They have things to say in a different way, but you have to get it out somehow. And if you don't have that person, if you write it out to yourself, even, as painful as that might be, and read it back, then you can be that person, and maybe that can help you to know that your voice is a good voice. Your things you have are good things, and you might get brave enough to tell somebody, to share with somebody, and it's going to be okay.
So, wonderful words of encouragement. Um, sometimes people and sometimes I've resisted getting help either from a coach or some therapist or whatever, because there's a thought, oh, I should be able to do this all myself. I should be able to white knuckle it and figure it out and all that. And that can create a real isolationist,
Mhm.
lonely energy.
Mhm.
How do we, as humans in Western society, start thinking about that differently? That maybe we shouldn't be able to do it all on our own, or
Yeah. Um, I get that too, because we're Midwesterners, and
yeah,
it's one of our gifts. And then, sometimes when you have a gift, it's like that card. The card you can look at both ways, and the gift might turn into something that's a negative, like being super self sufficient and being super capable. Um, then those are all gifts. Those are great things, but that also might prevent you from asking for help too, or to say, yeah, I don't got this and I do need some help. Um, so I think that a lot of times if we're just like isolated, just our own selves, our own thoughts, like a lot of things are lies, honestly, that you're saying to yourself. Shame is a lie, for one thing. It's good to be convicted. It's good to know, yeah, be accountable for things that you did, and that, yeah, I have to live through these consequences of things that I did. But shame is not a destination for anybody. It is maybe a pain point that tells you, hey, you got to take a different way. You got to take a different path and ask for help. And I also think, pride is I don't know, it's a barrier. It is an obstacle. Often it's not helping you to really see yourself or be better. And humility gives you that. Pride kind of gives you a hard heart, but humility gives you that soft heart and that open heart to know, to love yourself enough to know you need help. To love yourself, to know that you're not perfect. You're not, I would say we're not cyborgs, we're humans. And with humanness comes all these wonderful things. But when you're humble, then I need help. I'm going to ask for help, and be grateful when you get the help. And don't feel like, oh, now I owe that person, or now they saw my weakness. No, they saw you were human. No, you gave them an opportunity to help and to be kind, to be generous. And that's more gifts. So good things.
Gosh, you're just bringing up so many wonderful aspects of humanity and moving forward. And when you just brought up, it's so easy to go down the path of being ashamed, being guilty about, feeling guilty, feeling all that. What's the difference between but between feeling shame and guilt and being accountable?
Well, again, I'm not a trained therapist or counselor, so
I mean,
I'm just
choosing
to my,
to dwell in shame and guilt, or
yeah,
choosing to
yeah.
be accountable.
Right. I do think it's a choice too, and I do think that being accountable can be a super positive thing, where being shameful or feeling guilt it's a negative thing. It's gonna drag you down. It's not gonna lift you up. It's not a beautiful place to live.
No.
But you just gotta take the life lessons from that. I know that, one of the analogies that has become important to me is the butterfly. And I love butterflies. The older I get, I'm not sure if you knew this, but when you grow up, you start looking at birds and butterflies and things, you're just like, oh wow. So I've always loved nature, but just think about the butterfly and how it's so beautiful, and it's doing what it's supposed to do. It's flying, but the butterfly doesn't look back and like be ashamed of that time it spent as a caterpillar, just
Well,
on the ground, just consuming, just like eating, just taking in all this stuff, good or bad, selfish, really, just doing its own thing. And, then there's a time that the cocoon or chrysalis, where they literally break down and die and become something new. The butterfly doesn't look back with shame or guilt
mm,
on things in the past. It just does what it's supposed to do. It flies, it's doing what it's supposed to do. And it wouldn't have been able to do that if it didn't crawl on the ground as a lowly caterpillar, or spend that time in the literal gunk of that dark chrysalis or cocoon. So I don't know. My faith is very important to me. So there's a verse in Corinthians about being a new creation, and that literally nature shows us that. God's creation shows us that constantly, of that transformation. And if it can happen for butterfly, it can happen for me. It can happen for you, anybody.
both living in South Dakota, I think of witnessing the transformation that comes after, like we're all getting into it now, like November, December, on through February, it will be more and more snow, more and more not green, more and more death in a sense. But then there's that amazing transformation that
Yeah.
comes with the end of March. It gives me goosebumps thinking about that. What is that transformation from winter to spring like for you as an artist?
Oh, well, I love when you said things are not green. Like I think that's great because they do change they do change colors. But I'm a person that I mean I love all the seasons. I'm not a winter hater. Um, there's definitely positive things about being kind of in your little home, your little dwelling during the winter, and um, looking forward to spring, all things new, and then summer, just the sun, the glorious sun, and then the fall, just like that feeling of kind of that peaceful feeling coming over. So I'm not sure how the seasons affect me as an artist, other than um, maybe I do different kinds of art in different seasons. Because the summer, I feel like my art is, I like to garden. I like to like get out there and plant some things. I'm not a great gardener, but I like to. I'm a hobbyist, I guess. And then the we can do things in the summer, get out, do some creative things. Fall, I teach, so I see that as an opportunity to share gifts of art. And then like also in the fall and winter, sometimes I make gifts. So it's kind of a nice time to be indoors and creating and crafting. So I think just all the seasons are great opportunities, different ways to create in different ways.
So if a new client came to you, Willie, in the in a winter phase of their life, or in the caterpillar phase of their life, and how what might you do to to encourage them to look towards their butterfly springtime potential?
Well, I would just encourage them um, in that it is not a necessarily a bad place to be, because it's preparing you for the future that's to come. I
Mm,
think most of us, when we get to where we are in life, we look back at experiences we had that shaped us, and many times, the best things, things that shaped us the most, were the crisis and the hard things, and the losses, and the changes that you didn't want to have. So I think that if you reframe it, and that's a skill that I'm working on, and I'm a lifelong learner too, so I'm definitely no expert in life and learning. But when you reframe things and say, this bad thing, what you're calling bad, that happened, um, there's good that's coming out of it. There, there is, there's positive things that are coming out of it. So, look at some examples in your life when you went through things and what happened. So just also that remembrance that, as humans, we're given that beautiful gift of memory, and we recall things, and we can recall things that, even things that we might feel anxiety or fear over, like, you felt this way before. Did something bad happen? No. Okay, well, let's look at that. Or yes, something did bad happen. Okay, well, let's look at that, because the first one, you're using your precious energy on things that may never happen. The second one, you probably learned a lot from what the bad thing that did happen, and let's reframe it, and let's look forward to something good. And then you can always restart. You can start a different day in a different way. you know.
so something we as humans like to not demonize, but be very critical of is feeling stressed and feeling anxious, and we often label those feelings as bad.
Hmm.
What might be another way to look at those feelings that is more empowering?
Well, I've also learned that stress is not a bad thing. There's good stress, there's bad stress, but I think without some amount of stress, I don't think much would get done in life. I mean, I think that stress itself is like a scary word that just, maybe means something different than what we think. But you can look at it as a positive and, take a little mental check of like how you're feeling at that moment. And uh we're like so afraid to feel uncomfortable, but
Mm,
what's the quote about a ship is safe in the harbor, but that's not what ships are for.
mm,
And
mm,
that's you can't be too safe. You got to take some risks, you got to try some things, you got to live life. If your point of life is to be comfortable, um then I don't know, maybe that's a different kind of life. But I know a lot of the great people in history had some bumpy past. You wouldn't want to read their autobiography if it was then. And then the next day was as great as the last, and then tomorrow's gonna be even better. And you're like, wow, what a boring book. I want to hear some stuff. I want to hear some things. Like just people in history. They did hardships. They got through it. You know, for me, the Bible is like full of people that you'd call a mess up, but that's not how God saw it. He saw it as a person with great potential and heart that tried.
mm, mm. Yeah, I I always want to put a plug in for this to anyone who's experienced it. How have mindfulness and breathing techniques helped you in the way you navigate or the way you dance with stress?
Well, that is, to be honest, it is a very new skill and approach for me, and that mindfulness and just being in the moment is something that I actually learned from my daughter, and I think that's also another different twist on life that we think that we have kids because we're going to teach them, and like that's why you had kids so you can teach them. But I think sometimes the reason we have kids or people put in our lives is that no, they're going to teach you a few things. And I have some humility to know that I've learned things from both my kids. I have an amazing son and daughter and two stepkids, but that mindfulness is something that you know she taught me about being in the moment and looking at like tomorrow you might not have what you're planning on. You have today. you know you can't go back and fix the past. It's affected you, it's there, and appreciate it because it brought you to today. So being grateful is another skill that I'm working on, and you do have to practice these skills because they're mindsets that we're not used to doing. But I think just like being grateful, having that as a mindset, and having a growth mindset helps your mind in that moment too. To know that, and in that moment, you can be mindful to know that you're going to be okay. You look at the past, what you lived through, you're going to be okay. Look at the future. Part of it's going to be what you make it, and part of it's going to be some unknowns. But just right now, just appreciate what you have and be the best you can be today.
So can you say a little bit more about the practice of being grateful? Because I mean, for much of my life, I'm like, of course I'm grateful. I said I say thank you and stuff. But being grateful can be much more than that, can it?
Yes, I think we're in the habit of being grateful or having gratitude for only the good things. Like, of course, if you're like winning on winning on winning, you're gonna be thankful. But are you gonna be thankful when something that you think is negative is happening? It's not your go-to. It's not your go-to mindset. You're just like not happy. And it's okay to not want it, or to strive or have a goal for something better. But um, just having that gratitude attitude is going to go better, because you probably can't change what's happening with the circumstances. Then you're going to have the same thing with a crappy attitude, or the same thing with a thankful attitude. So why not have that one?
That's a good point. You're going to have it whether you enjoy it or whether you don't. So why not
Yeah,
enjoy it as much as possible?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then
So, so
look around today, because it's not going to be the same tomorrow. Look around today, because a year from now everything's going to be different. Better, worse, or just different.
hmm. So one of the things that fascinates me about your coaching practice is it has two tracks.
Mm,
Will you please tell me a little bit about, or tell us? I'm
sure.
on a podcast, not just having a conversation. Will you please tell us a little about those two tracks?
Sure. I I would never have thought myself to be a life coach, but when I looked at teaching, I thought that's literally what I've been doing for 30 years. Is that I'm we call them student learning objectives, where you develop an objective for a teacher, like what do I want the kids to know? Where do I want them to be? And then I kind of go backwards, like, well, what are the steps to take it to make it there? And it can't be you just have to paint better. It has to be specific, it has to be small, micro goals to get there and to take that step by step. So, one of the tracks or paths I have is accountability coaching. And that is, I would say, project growth, idea growth. You have an idea, you have a project in mind. You know what you want it to look like, you know what you want it to be, but you don't always know how to get there. Or you might know how you want to get there, but you're stuck. Or you know that there's 100 steps to get there, and you're paralyzed because there's too many, and you just end up the analysis paralysis, where you just sit there with your great idea that never happens. So most people need accountability to make things happen. Not everybody, but I'd say most do. Um, my students, they turn in artwork because I have a due date. And if it was just whenever, no one's checking in on you, I don't think that would get done. It's okay to have accountability, somebody that is checking on you, making you accountable for that. Accountability, having someone making you accountable is not negative. It's loving, and it sees your potential, and it comes alongside you to make that happen. So as a life coach, for that track, we would take what you want, your vision, your project, and break it down. What are these steps? Encourage, see the gifts, see the potential, see the obstacles. Can we clear any paths? Can we make a new path? And have these measurable, specific goals in mind called SMART goals. And then check-ins. How did you do? How do you feel? How do you feel about how you did?
So what happens if a client comes to a check-in and life came up and they didn't accomplish much of anything towards
That's okay. Sometimes growth, you can't see growth. Sometimes growth looks like it's not moving at all, but it is. And you'll see it later, you know. It's not visible, you know. So I guess that's faith. And it's okay. Life happens. And at a check-in, if they didn't get their ABC goal done, you know, let's just do it next time. I think we have these preconceived notions and expectations that we put on ourselves, and no one's really putting that on you, you know. It's just us doing that to ourselves. And again, that starts to be the shame and the guilt, and you're not gonna be your best self with shame and guilt. So being accountable and having someone that guides you there, just try again. Worst thing you do is not try, but let's try again.
so that's one track, the accountability track. What's the other track you offer?
The other track is validate and navigate. And that I would say is more personal growth, self growth, as opposed to project growth. And I do believe a lot of healing will come from feeling validated. And I know from personal experience that did for me. Being validated in who you are and what you do is really important. And a lot of that begins with, you know, that self-talk, and also speaking up, like we talked about, and just knowing what feels good, what doesn't feel good, you know, what suits you, what doesn't suit you, what, you know, why am I feeling like this in this situation? You know, what's the reason? And just having an analysis of that. And sometimes we need someone else to do that, because it's messy for sure, but it's probably pretty ugly too. And we don't want people to see the ugly stuff, you know, that we won't pretend's not there, but that's not helping anybody. You know, you gotta get that out. Like I said, get that out in the light. So validation is really important, and taking that through some steps to where, you know, why don't you feel validated? Where don't you feel validated? And where do you feel validated? Let's look at that. What can we do how can you go forward with that? A lot of times that includes boundaries. If it's relationship based, like, are you feeling insignificant and kind of resentful, for that with this person because of what they're doing, when in fact maybe you never put a boundary up, or you never communicated. Maybe you didn't even know to communicate that, but there's something there that's an obstacle between you and your relationship, or things in life. So a boundary becomes part of that validation, because validation means value, and to realize that you have value, and the things you say, everything is value. So to have that voice, I think the voice is important to feel validated. And then navigation is part of that too. So validation and navigation, like, where do you go from that? I believe it's not just, we're not just ourself. We're not just, to be selfish. It's like, I made my perfect life. Here I am. Navigating means going forward, and that affects other people when you do that in a positive way. And when you do that, that leads to your purpose too. So that leads to peace when you do that as well, because of operating in your purpose. will be a peaceful, natural thing to you. So those are the two paths or tracks that I feel are important and I feel that I can help people with.
They sound like two powerful tracks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious and want to be sure to ask this before we go. How has being an artist and an art teacher, how does that all that experience inform your coaching?
Well, it directly impacts my coaching because that's what made me go into life coaching, is because I felt like when I started to feel, and investigate and, talk about my own purpose, like I feel like teaching is coaching. And how I got started in that was I had an art competition and with our art team, which is a group of artists, and we won. So we were awarded uh, a award for that, and I was presented as Coach Lisa or Coach Dresch, and I just thought that was very funny. Like, wow, here I am, a coach, and like, hey kids, drop and give me 10 sketches, and we're gonna do, it's like the coach thing was just kind of a funny thing to me. But then I realized, like, no, that's exactly what I do. That is exactly it. You are working with kids to get them. You see the potential, and you're working with them to get them where they need to be. So um, I think everybody in life needs to have someone see their potential and to help them get to where they need to be in life, and to encourage them when they have become discouraged, take them out of those pits of shame or guilt, or those pits of, being overwhelmed, being stuck, being paralyzed, and just reaching in with that hand. It's not a better than you hand. It's just a helping hand, and that's what we need.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Well, I want to ask this too. So there's been times in my life where I've wanted to hire a coach for them to save me from my own mess. Is that what coaches do?
That's not what coaches do, but I I thought that myself too. Like, somebody just please tell me what to do. Just I'll just call you every day and you tell me exactly what to say and do. And like that, wouldn't that be something? That's really not what coaches do. Um, a life coach just comes alongside you, sees where you are, and asks, finds out where you want to be, and then helps you to figure out and fill that gap between where you are and where you want to be, and take those specific steps and goals to get there without judgment and without authority, other than a support system and an accountability partner and a validator and an encourager.
Very, very powerful. Very powerful. I I always ask each of my guests this question: what does imperfect best mean to you? To me, it means I look to the best that I can create and the best I want for the world. And then when mistakes and obstacles come up, instead of using them as a reason to stop, I try to learn from them and then move back towards my best. What does doing your imperfect best mean to you, Lisa?
Well, it gives you freedom, right? Because I wouldn't be on the show if I thought you only had perfect guests on here. So I wouldn't even be here without that. I wouldn't be in most places in my life if that was a prerequisite. I just think that imperfections are, um, that's what gives life its sparkle, you know? It's just, I like to see different looking things and different sounding things and different things, different places you go or things that happen. They don't have to be perfect to be a great experience. And, you know, it's kind of uh, a free place to be. And it also is a learning place to be because you learn from every so called mistake that you make or the things that didn't go their way or that aren't going your way. It's, I don't know, it's what gives life meaning. And otherwise, you would have a boring life. And who wants that? It's like that boring book. Like, hey, you want your autobiography to have a lot of good stuff in it. Just a lot of bad chapters, weird chapters, scary chapters, sad chapters. You know, that's the kind of book you want to read, and that's the kind of life that we're living.
Oh well, thanks, Lisa. I mean, if we don't have conversations like this about appreciating our lives, about moving forward, about getting uh, about getting coaching from others and getting guidance, we we really miss out on so many aspects of life. So thanks for engaging in this powerful conversation with me. And you have a beautiful website. It's purpose2peace.com. Do I have that right?
You do. Yes, thank you. My son made that beautiful website for me. Yes, I'm so grateful.
Well, you say your friend did that?
My son.
Oh, yeah, your son.
Yes.
You
My kids
have a
are very
great son.
artistic too. My kids have art. They're living their lives expressively and abundantly through the arts too. So
Well, please tell your son I think that purpose2peace.com is brilliant.
well, thank you. I will tell him. It's good to
And
hear good things.
what?
It's good to hear good things. We have to tell people when we appreciate them.
Mm. Thanks for all the bits of wisdom you shared on the show, and not only that, but how you wove it together, and just you have a very kind manner to you. Thanks for being you, Lisa.
Oh, well, thanks for appreciating that. I feel the same way about you.
Aw, thanks.
I'm glad to be your friend.
Yeah, glad to be your friend too. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank
Goodbye.
you. Bye. Oh, gosh. Good conversations. I don't know if you feel this way or not, but to me they are so fulfilling and they're so exciting and so inspiring. When I'm in my own head, the possibilities sometimes can become smaller and smaller and small. My hands can't go any closer together. You know what I mean. But a conversation like I have with Lisa helps the possibilities expand and expand and expand. And now my hands are off the screen. Well, anyway, thanks so much for tuning in and please comment if you're inspired. we love comments and find them meaningful, and but most of all, I hope you found something in this show to reflect upon and to ponder, and who knows what you do with that. And but if you're inspired to do something with that, I say go for it and try it. This life's an exploration. And it's so beautiful and so challenging. Stay tuned for another awkwardly awesome podcast next week. This is a pre-record. I have no idea who our guest will be next week, but there'll be another great guest. Talk to you later. Have a good day. Have a good day. Number